So, Incia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks for being here. I want to hear about your yoga journey and where it started. So, when did you first find yoga? And then, how did it impact your life?
So, believe it or not, I found yoga as an adult, as I think most of us
Mhm.
in who are now yoga teachers um, found yoga. So, it was for me, it was actually, I would say, early 20s. And I actually found it on the lunch hour. So, there was a studio right across from where I worked. And they had like a power yoga class, 45 minutes. I was like, this is perfect. At that time, I had a job that was actually quite stressful. So I was like, this is a great way to unwind over the lunch hour. Let's go do this. And obviously, instantaneously fell in love with yoga. So yoga for me was, something that I came to my mat with to just kind of, unwind and just let go, like the power of just kind of surrendering to the mat. And I absolutely loved it. I've tried everything in terms of, something for both physically and mentally, and how to de-stress. And I think yoga just kind of spoke to me in so many ways because it was just not something that you do for that, hour or 45 minutes. It's kind of taking it along with you and along your day. So I think the days that I did it, I came back after lunch and I was like, I feel so renewed. So that
Yeah.
was my sort of connection with yoga.
Just curious, what was your job at the time?
So I used to work as I was in the humanitarian sector. So
Mm.
at that time, I was working with the United Nations, like an associate of United Nations here in Toronto, where I live. And we were actually, I was actually a coordinator for the World AIDS conferences that happened. So we were working on a conference that was hosting youth. And the focus was obviously HIV/AIDS, and the conference was in Toronto that year. So we were hosting thousands of youth that year. It was quite a stressful
Mm.
work because it was coordinating not just people that were flying into the city, but also conferences that were happening, events that were happening. So it was a very fast paced job. And yeah, some of my colleagues were like, "Hey, I've been trying yoga at
Mm.
the lunch hour. You want to come?" And I was like, "Sure, I'm
Yeah.
in."
Wow, so that's so great you found that and they had that little lunch hour yoga. That was perfect for you at the time. So
Yeah.
how did we get from that job and finding yoga during lunch to then you deciding that you wanted to teach yoga and share it with children?
So teaching, actually, I'm an elementary school teacher as well. So that's my background now. So I first worked in the humanitarian sector, and I was actually in New York City for quite some time. And I did
Mm.
did an internship at the UN, and then I went into when I came back here. I actually worked for UNICEF, and that's when I went into classrooms and I was having that interactive experience with children in the classroom, and I felt like that was my calling. I wanted to be a teacher. So I went back to school and got my master's in education, and then I started teaching. So it was, I would say, probably my second year in teaching, and I had a full classroom. I had 27 students with diverse needs, and it was a busy classroom. And immediately to me, what came to mind was the fact that, hey, when I was having, a rough time at work or just finding a way to connect with emotions, and I just wanted to add a tool to my classroom as a teacher. And I was like, I want to connect these children to yoga. So I tried to look for kids yoga training, because I felt like that was the best way rather than, doing a teacher yoga training or doing my 200 hours. So I started to look for kids yoga trainings, and I found one, and I did my training in 2014, and then started to implement it into my classroom. And I just loved how it just changed the culture of my classroom. Kids were resonating with it. They were asking for it. They would remind me of it. They were actually very excited when we would have yoga in the classroom, and we would even do it during phys ed time. And at that time, phys ed was more about just active movement and learning all these different athletic skills than it was to kind of quiet the mind and do these slow movements. And that was sort of my way of bringing yoga into my classroom as a teacher. And once I got certified, I just immediately thought, hey, other classrooms need this, other kids need this, other teachers need to know about this. So that's when it kind of sparked the idea of creating my own business. And
Mm.
that's where Once Upon a Mat came around. And I started off with, teaching in community centers, teaching after school programs. And that's where Once Upon a Mat began. It was sort of like a part-time thing that I wanted to do to just connect with kids in classrooms. And I thought that was the best way to bring yoga to kids in that school moment, in that school environment, something they're there for a majority of their day now. So something that is available to them.
So are you now full time with Once Upon a Mat? Did you end up leaving the teaching or are you still teaching?
So I kind of have gone back and forth. My journey with Once Upon a Mat has been ever changing, and the
Hmm.
last couple of years have changed it even more. So um, I I had it part time, and then I kind of left and embraced it full time. So Once Upon a Mat was full time for about 3 years. And so I left teaching. And the reason I did that is because I opened up the first kids yoga studio in a little outside of Toronto, in the city that I actually taught in. And so I opened up the very first kids yoga studio because I wanted an environment for kids to kind of come and feel like they have a space that's theirs. I found that when I was teaching at adult yoga studios, kids couldn't be themselves in adult yoga studios, and the reality is because adult yoga is very different, looks, feels,
Hmm.
and sounds very different to kids yoga. And I found that it was challenging to teach in adult yoga studios because I always had to, have them watch their inner voice or their quiet voice, or we couldn't jump and we couldn't dance and we couldn't
Yeah.
do all of those amazing things that the kids yoga world offers. And so I had a vision of, having my own space and offering all these wonderful programs. So when I did have the studio for 2 years, I offered everything from prenatal yoga all the way to tween yoga. And we did, creative ideas like yoga camp and yoga birthday parties and different events. And then after 2 years of doing that, I actually did close down the studio. And the reality of it was that I first and foremost, as a small business, you kind of have to always step back a little and be like, I'm doing this full time. Am I meeting my financial goals? Is this taking me where I need to go? And I kind of had to reevaluate that and think about, was it a sustainable business model? And then secondly, I became a new mom. So
Mm.
that was even harder because I was kind of, small business, was running the studio space. I was doing everything from marketing to program creation to teaching it to, the maintenance of the space. So I found that it was quite challenging because I went back to the studio space after 7 weeks of giving birth. So,
Oh my goodness.
so I was like, I kind of have to step back a little. As moms, your reality changes and things change. So I kind of scaled back, and for me, it was a bittersweet moment because I did give up the space, but then I just took whatever worked in the studio space for me and for families and for the community that I was servicing, and just took those ideas and developed them into programs that I was able to offer in other communities. So although I wasn't able to offer um, something in the community that I was in, I kind of just went all over the city then and was able to offer it to other communities as well. So kind of, I looked at it as, if one door closes, another one opens. So, and it just gave me great experience of, the kids yoga business side of things, because I think that a lot of us don't really know that reality till we actually get to it, and then we find out, do the numbers match? Is this a sustainable business model? All of that, because you do want to offer something that is um, just something that's amazing to our children, but you also want to know, is this going to be a sustainable livelihood method? Like, is this going to
Hmm.
work out for me. So I think that's just what you learn with the kids yoga business world as well.
That is huge. That's something that I'm glad you're bringing up, because I also had the experience. I was with Yogi Beans for a very long time, and I was with them before a studio space, and then they had a studio space in Manhattan.
Hmm.
And then the studio space closed, and, the company is still thriving and, all over the place. But I saw how hard having that physical space can be. I think kids yoga studios and adult yoga studios, honestly, I see all the time that it's a very tough, um like you said, the financials and like the amount of energy put in,
Hmm.
it's very hard to match that, um at this point in time. And that's something I hope changes. And like one of the reasons I want to bring so much light to kids yoga is that it's such a valuable skill and a valuable, um, just practice that we're passing on to kids. But not many people know that. So then the value is not attached to it, and then we're not getting paid enough, and we're putting in, I mean, the amount of energy it takes just to teach a lot. But then you were running the studio, and you're, like you said, you're doing the marketing. There's a lot. 7 weeks after giving birth, when you're still recovering, and then you're diving back into teaching kids yoga, which is a very physical career, right? So
Yeah.
I'm sure,
Yeah.
like, for you, you're jumping around. It's like that's not really what you don't want to be moving like that necessarily. Depending, everyone heals differently, but that soon after giving birth. So thank you for bringing that up. I want people to know that, like, that if you're struggling in the way that your business is created right now, that there's so many ways that you can adapt and change. And I think, since it's relatively new, we're all kind of experimenting with what works and what doesn't. But I'm so glad you were listening to yourself and saying, you know what, it's time to just, like you said, close this door and move on.
Absolutely. And I feel like, as kids yoga teachers, we also are constantly highlighting, like you mentioned, the value of kids yoga, because it's not a skill that is visible right away.
Mm-hmm.
Just like how other extracurricular activities are and are valued, like swimming or dance or soccer, because there are levels or there are medals or there's certain
Yes.
achievements that are quite acquired in our very competitive society. And parents kind of thrive to look towards those. And I always have to remind our parent community to be like, there's you might see the physical aspects of yoga with your children learning different movements, but you might not see that internal work that's happening with self-esteem and with confidence building and with kindness and gratitude and with just being able to appreciate your body. So and as a business, that's hard because it's not really matching in terms of other extracurricular businesses do thrive and they grow and they franchise and all of that, but the kids yoga world is very different because it's non-competitive and it's very much a individual activity as opposed to a group activity. And so it's harder to break through in a way to be the sort of thriving business. But I'm hoping that we're getting there. We're kind
Yeah.
of, when I first started in 2015, like kids yoga was still very much, um, you know, not really known, and there was a lot of taboo around it. There was a lot of misconceptions around it, and I'm happy to see that over the years it's changed and it's evolving. It's becoming more mainstream, and the value of it both in our homes and in our schools is getting known. But as individuals like you and I who are offering it as something that is connected to our livelihood, it's harder because you have to sometimes take reality into account and be like, I'm number crunching. Is this really
Mm-hmm.
the effort that I'm putting in? Is it matching with what I'm receiving back?
Yes, it's so important to step back and reevaluate sometimes, I think, because all of us love it so much and we're so passionate about it. I know I have, and I know I've talked to people who've gotten lost in it, to the point
Hmm.
of complete burnout,
Yeah.
because we care so much about the kids. But the reality is, if we're then running on fumes and we're not taking care of ourselves ultimately, then that's not good for anybody. That's not going to, we're not going to be of service. So just I'm just so glad that you brought this up, and that people listening, I'm sure people listening can relate so much to this, to finding the right path for them in the field. And I do think there's, like you said, it's changing just in the last few years. Like, I've been doing this 12 years, and yeah, as how far we've come, it's amazing. I also hope that since kids now have been practicing, some kids have been practicing for 10 years, that we can see how this is impacting children. I know some of the kids I taught are now teenagers, so it's like I'd be curious to know what they learned back then, how that's impacting them today. Like you said, it's not always visible, and we don't get a black belt, we don't move on like that, but these lessons and seeds that we plant are just invaluable, and they're gonna come up. So I think we're getting there. I'm
Correct.
sometimes I get impatient. I'm like, come on, let's let's get this moving. But we're doing good. We're doing good. And so
I
I want
agree.
I want to hear about your work. So there's a few things I noticed that you do. I was interested in hearing about the toddler program, Calm Me. So the
Mhm.
mindfulness program for toddlers. Personally, I love toddlers and I love working with toddlers. And I also know a lot of people are like, no way. Like that's I don't, they don't even know, they're overwhelmed. Um, but it's such a unique time of development. And so I'm interested to hear, what does your mindfulness program for that age look like?
Absolutely. So actually, the toddler group is my favorite group. And when I became certified as a teacher, I actually thought I might resonate with, teenagers or that sort of older age group between 8 to 10. But as I started to teach in my studio space and develop programs for kids of all ages, I found the toddlers was just something that really spoke to my heart because it's just such an ever evolving stage. And I feel like it's the beginning stage of being able to understand those big feelings and label those emotions and how to um, deal with them because often and that's why the name Calm Me came around because we often tell kids like calm down, but we've never really taught them how and what that means and what that looks like and what could you do. And so I developed this program really at the leg end of me kind of transitioning out of my studio space and took it to offer it to other communities. It came around from my background of being a teacher and kind of seeing within that kindergarten stage as to lots of emotions that children have at the very beginning of that school stage that they start at kindergarten. And that's why this program is for ages 2 to 4 because it starts them young. It sort of is a program that has a purpose to it. It has an intent to it. So it's taking toddlers in, taking what they enjoy, the idea of play, and seeing everything through a lens of mindfulness. So teaching them breath as young as 2, teaching them movement as young as 2, and doing it through the curriculum. So I do a lot of literacy and a lot of um, incorporation of books and we learn about numbers and we do it through so that that stage that toddlers love learning and they can do it through a mindful lens. So the program is very colorful and it has a lot of different pieces to it where we learn about senses and we learn about how to connect with our 5 senses and we learn about movement and how do we do that on a daily basis, how can we stretch our bodies, and we learn about different ways that you can breathe. And I find with the toddler age group, um, props are so important because you want them to be visual. So this program sort of incorporates something that's play based, something that is fast paced, because that's toddlers are busy. And so what I wanted to do was to offer this to not just caregivers, parents, but also schools, so that they can start incorporating this in their environment as early as preschool and use it as a tool that they can do have learning happen through a lens of mindfulness. So my vision was like, how beautiful would it be that our kids go to preschool and they, they start their morning with a meditation, and they do simple things that toddlers are able to do, um, and incorporate just some calm and quiet time. So I developed the program and I taught it in a few different communities, and then I had interest in people just wanting to offer it in their communities. So I kind of just developed a guide, and it's now available online. So it is um, available for purchase. So there's a guide, there's a weekly program, there's affirmations that you can use with it, and it can really be incorporated in any environment that has toddlers. So whether it's a home daycare, preschool, early kindergarten, because I think that it's important to start young. It's important to start as young as toddlers. And I always get that question as a kids yoga teacher: how do you teach them? Or can
Hmm.
toddlers even do yoga? Or and my question is always, yes, they're the perfect stage to kind of incorporate that, because they're like sponges and they're so ready to learn and be curious. And this is the best way to get them to be curious about ways that can kind of calm them down. And even if it's one piece that they take away, whether it's using breath or whether it's using movement or whether it's finding some quiet time. I always say, like, shavasana for a toddler is like 3 seconds, but that's beauty in 3 seconds.
Yes. Yes.
So, just I find that it's always great to even model it. So I like that the program is incorporating also interaction between an adult and a toddler, so that there's some modeling that's happening about how to do it, as opposed to them kind of just knowing it intuitively, because they don't.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that was my
That's so
idea
wonderful.
behind.
I'm glad that you then created that. It sounds like so then people can purchase, and because like you said, so many people are just at a loss of understandably of what to do with toddlers, but it sounds like you organized it well and tested it out, and it can be incorporated in different
Yeah,
places.
so I have a few different kids yoga teachers and a few different teachers that have incorporated in their communities,
Hmm.
across the world. So Australia and right here in Canada in a community, and then in Dominican Republic. And I just recently had someone that I trained the program in, and she's in a small island in Europe, in Malta. So she's
Wow.
incorporating it. So I think um, a lot of kids yoga teachers, especially, they sort of feel a bit overwhelmed about the toddler age group, because it does require a lot of patience. And I think as adults, I always say it's the best age group to teach, because you're just kind of practicing that mindfulness with them as you're doing it. So that was my idea behind Calm Me, because I love toddlers, and I feel that starting them young is the best way to get their journey for yoga and mindfulness started.
Yes, I completely agree. 100%. My son is 2, so he's like right in that prime toddler stage. I mean, the amount of wonder that they have and just like
Yeah,
enthusiasm, whatever you're going to present to them at that age, they're open to. So why not present these skills that they can have, for their life? Just planting those seeds that even just them becoming aware of like breathing, of taking a deep breath. That's huge. That's huge to take with
absolutely.
them.
Yeah, my son's also too. And like,
Oh yeah,
and he's learned candle breath, and,
right.
we've learned a few affirmations. And so I always say, like, if you're doing it consistently, and if you're doing it together with them, they'll definitely pick up on it, and they'll be able to show it, and, keep it. As well, we started doing candle breath when he was 13 months. And now at
Hmm.
2, I just have to say, show me a candle breath, and he does it. So
Right.
it's really beautiful to see that.
Now, is he the inspiration for your affirmations for boys cards? Because I
Yeah.
loved those. I saw those on your site. So tell me about those.
So like I said, we've been he knows affirmations. We've been practicing it for some time. I love affirmations. I incorporate them in all of my programs, and I just find it's a great way for children to mindfully think about themselves every day. And so when we started doing affirmations, there's some beautiful ones that are out there. But I just found that as we started to, practice them and say them, um, I sort of found the same messaging for boys. And I was having a little bit of a struggle with it because I wanted him to go beyond just being a boy that thinks he's brave and thinks he's powerful and thinks he's,
Yes, it's always the
just
same.
strong and he can do anything. And so, there were words like I'm kind and all of those, but I wanted him to just sort of think beyond that masculine lens, and I
Mm.
couldn't find anything. So I created them. So I partnered up with a beautiful illustrator, um, Julia Galata, and we kind of just talked about what this project would look like and what I wanted these cards to have. And I wanted them to have, some vulnerability for boys. And I wanted boys to connect with their feelings. And I wanted to go beyond just, what you see or boys see themselves as. So I wanted boys to connect with their feelings and know that it's okay to cry and know that it's okay to be sad and know that you can do things that are beyond gender stereotypes. So you can cook and you can clean and you can do all of these things, that you don't just have to stay in that boy shell and do things that we often just hear that boys are capable and can do. So there's a set of 19 cards, and they speak to boys where the pictures match the words, and it talks about being caring and connecting with themselves. So there's um, cards that really just speak to boys having that social and emotional side to them, and that they can embrace that and that it's okay. I also wanted the cards to be diverse, so I wanted them to represent little boys who are able to see themselves in the cards and not just just I wanted boys to connect with them, and that little boy looks like me, and yes, I can feel that way or I can be that way. So that's what the set of cards are. They're actually in pre-order phase, and they are in my shop and they are available. And I'm hoping that they sort of spark that conversation that we want to have with our boys. Each card comes with a prompt, and not only can you see the affirmations and talk about them, but there's some questions that are at the bottom that allow parents and educators to have those conversations with boys and think about themselves in other ways. So yeah, I'm excited to actually get them out to boys and have them resonate with boy moms who are looking to raise boys that kind of push the envelope a little and challenge gender stereotypes and have boys that are a different type of generation that we want to raise.
Yes, that's so important. And so it's so wonderful that you created these four boys because they see themselves and it's four boys and they feel seen. And then there's these messages that when you're saying that, it's so true. Like even with clothing, like the
Mm,
patterns that are on boys' clothes and girls' clothes, I just having a girl and a boy, I noticed, and I'm like, it's so kind of arbitrary, like that
yeah,
his clothes have monsters on them, and my daughter's they had flowers, and it's not that these things are small, but you start to notice it everywhere, like these subtle messages of like you said, boys are strong and brave, and they are, but then there's all these other things. We want to raise our girls and our boys to be full human beings that aren't
absolutely,
right stuck to these kind
absolutely.
of labels.
Yeah. But you can't just, that softness shouldn't just be for girls.
Mm-hmm.
Or like those dinosaurs should not just be for boys. And
Yeah.
like I said, I struggle with that and I still do sometimes when I'm shopping because there's, just that boy and girl and,
Yeah.
pink and blue or
Yeah.
unicorns and, you know, race cars, and it's like I want it to go beyond that. So even within the cards, there's images or illustrations that, like, there is a boy in the cards, and he is playing with unicorns, because unicorns aren't just for girls.
Right.
And there is a boy, and he has butterfly wings on, because dress up is not just for girls. And
Hmm.
I think that we need to think about all of those details when we're bringing up boys. Yes, you can definitely have those empowering qualities, both boys and girls, but it's okay to cry as a boy and not be told that you're strong, and boys don't cry, and
Hmm.
just don't do that. Because it is about embracing that vulnerability, and know that it's okay, know that it will be accepted, and know that it's an emotional outlet for boys is just as meaningful and powerful as it is for girls or women. So for
Yeah.
me, it was starting young. So it's at the age group for it is 3 to 7, and it is, again, starting young and letting our boys know that you aren't alone, and when you're going through all of these emotions, that you will be seen and you will be heard, and as a parent or an educator, I'm there for you.
Yes. Yeah. Well, love it. I'm gonna have to put my pre-order in for my son. Like, I love the sound of this. Um,
Thank
Before I
you.
get to our last question, there are other program. You have a lot. Everyone go to her website. Once upon a mat. But there's Once Upon a Rainbow, and I loved how you said in a post, you said forward thinking, connecting children to cultures, diversity, mindfulness, and most of all, kindness to our earth, to themselves, and to each other. So I thought that was beautiful. So can you just tell us a bit about that program, Once Upon a Rainbow, and what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Once Upon a Rainbow actually, was a program that I had envisioned before I opened up the kids yoga studio, because I envisioned, I used to teach a lot of outdoor classes, outdoor kids yoga classes, and I loved it. Just connecting with nature, and the kids being outdoors, and connecting with just the sheer outdoor environment. And so last year, when we were encouraged to do programs outdoors, I thought, this is my opportunity. So I worked on Once Upon a Rainbow. It was a program that kind of brings together both of my worlds, teaching and yoga and mindfulness. So it's a program that connects kids to nature and mindfulness, but does it through a curriculum. Because I find that as a kids yoga teacher, and I've been seeing it year after year, is yoga and mindfulness needs to be in our curriculum. It needs to be something that's offered to our children every day, just like recess and
Mm-hmm.
lunch, and language and numeracy. It's something that needs to be incorporated in our school day. It's not just an activity that needs to be done perhaps just to give kids a break, or to incorporate in our physical education. It needs to be done every day. And as a teacher, I've done it on my own accord in my own classrooms over the years, but I have found that it's still not there. So I wanted to create a program that was curriculum based and would connect kids back to nature. Our kids are spending more and more time indoors, and last year's reality was, kind of set us back as well. And we are spending a lot of time in front of screens, and even more so within the last year. So I wanted to get kids out, and I wanted to get them connected with, just everything that nature has to offer, because it's so mindful to just even see how the works of nature happen on a day to day. So I put together this program, offered it last year, and the idea behind this program was to um, just have children appreciate our environment. Um, and the reality is that our children are our future. So if we aren't teaching them the things that we would like to see, in 25 years from now, then they won't really come become a reality. And so for me, this program was special because it's about connecting and learning all of the different ways that we teach the curriculum, but teaching it in a more holistic way, and to be able to connect to themselves, and something that I wasn't seeing in schools. And really, this is a program that would be my dream job, to just
Mm.
teach kids on a day to day, connecting with how the works of our earth happen, and to get them to appreciate the land that they're on, and to get them to be able to see mindfully all of the magic that happens in nature, and then to do it mindfully, so to do it with incorporating of yoga and incorporating of mindfulness. So the program has pieces to it that are about you know beginning your day with a meditation, and doing art and literacy and science all through a mindful lens. And I feel like if we don't interweave this into our curriculum, that our children will kind of not get those life lessons that we want them to create a world that we would like to see, to have all of those qualities of being kind. And I think the last year has just kind of brought together so much, that I felt it was the perfect time to launch a program like this. And the reason why I actually called it Once Upon a Rainbow is because the rainbows were a symbol of what our world looked like in 2019 and 2020, and sort of our rainbow and our happy
Mm.
ending. And I see the children that I teach this program to as our rainbow and our happy ending, because they are our future, and they are who will kind of elevate to how we want our thoughts to change for the future, and how we want to raise our children, and how we want them to learn about different people and different cultures, and all of those different topics that we as human beings have kind of harshly been faced with in the last year and a half. I think just everything kind of was at below the surface and came up to the top. And I feel like now is the opportunity to teach our children that this is how we could move forward. And it comes with being able to connect to yourself first, and being able to be kind to you and kind to everyone around you, and then it kind of creates that ripple effect that we would want to see in the
Hmm.
world. And so yeah, this program is just so special to me, because it just brings together both my worlds, and how I'd like them to going forward, teaching and combining yoga and mindfulness.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely beautiful. And it's, as you were saying, it's so timely. And this is the time now that we're coming out of this slowly, out of this pandemic. It's still going. We're starting to step out of it. This is the time to reflect on how do we want to move forward. How, what's the world, like you're saying, that we want to create for our children? Like, because we really, everything came to the surface. We can't ignore it. And I mean, you could choose to just go back to the way things were, but this is the time. It's such an important time right now. So to start that program, I think is just wonderful.
Absolutely. Yeah. I thought just, if we want to have a progressive world, then we need to start thinking about progressive ways and progressive things that we want to teach our children. So the
Mm-hmm.
program's ideally for ages 3 to 7, just kind of in and around my favorite age group. And,
Right.
we kind of just immerse ourselves into doing things from a very nature focused and mindful lens.
Great. Well, again, everyone go to her website, and I'll have you give it at the end of the episode too. You can see more about
Absolutely.
this. So, having been in kids yoga for so long, I would love to hear your kids yoga gem. So, if you were to offer one piece of advice to someone sharing yoga with children, what would it be?
My advice would be to start small. So start somewhere. I find that whenever we are learning a new skill, or we are embracing something that might be outside of our comfort zone, that we might get overwhelmed. So I always tell kids yoga teachers and educators and parents that start small, be consistent, pick it up as a habit, so that it becomes something that you are doing on a daily. And that's how it becomes a part of your lifestyle, because that's the main aim of yoga and mindfulness, is to not just have it be something that's active or that you're doing to be in the fitness world. It's more about just yoga on your mat. It's taking whatever discipline or practice you're doing on yoga mat, and then taking it off your mat and taking it with you wherever you go. So you're practicing yoga in a grocery line, or you're practicing yoga while driving. And there's so many moments that you can actually reflect on how yoga can be a part of your life. So start small, be consistent, and do it together. I find that yoga itself is unity, it's union, it's community. And so I always tell parents and educators, do it together. Make it either a family activity that you do together, and it does not have to be that hour that people usually think that it needs to be. It could be 5 minutes in your day. Whether it's doing something quickly at breakfast time, breath work, whether it's dropping the kids off before school and you're doing an affirmation or doing a little bit of breathing, or if it's something before bedtime. So I always say do it together, because it just becomes something that is just so much more joyful when you're doing it together. And then lastly, start young. I read affirmations to my belly, so it's never too early. And that's always the question that I get from educators: and can I do yoga and mindfulness with my infant? Absolutely. And I feel like in the postpartum stage, like as moms, we need it more than perhaps babies do, because our day is just
Mhm.
so rushed and full, and it kind of just like brings you back to that moment and brings you back to how you can kind of use it for yourself as well. So you can start at any stage in your life, but start young, because they are more embracing and more accepting of it when they see it consistently, and they see it as a activity that you do together.
Love all that. Love all that. I'm like, put it in a book. You gotta. I loved talking to you and connecting with you.
Thank
I want
you.
people to find you. So where are all the websites, the social media, all of that?
Absolutely. So I have a website, and it's onceuponamat.ca. And that's where you can find all of the programs and services that I offer. Since my business has evolved, I'm offering a kids yoga teacher training now that's sort of targeted towards parents who would like to start with teaching kids yoga within their own home. Like, you don't have to be a kids yoga teacher in front of a class, or educators who want to incorporate it in their classroom. um, Once Upon a Boy affirmation cards, and Once Upon a Rainbow. And I also offer the Kami program in my shop now. And this year, actually, for the first time, I'm offering a, a teacher retreat, because I wanted to just give back to the teacher community, and I wanted to do something for them. And being an educator myself, so I'm actually having a little retreat this year, and we'll see how it goes. And it might be something that we do on a consistent basis, but to have teachers kind of connect with themselves, so that as an educator, if you're trying to incorporate yoga and mindfulness in your classroom, that you're kind of filling your bucket up this
Mhm.
year, so that when you go back in September with or August with a renewed vision of what that looks like in your classroom, and how to kind of connect with just your own mental health, but your students' mental health. So that all can be found on the website. I'm also on Instagram. I am quite active on there. So the handle is at Once Upon a Mat. And pretty much those are sort of the two ways that you can connect with me. I do all of my writing and marketing. So if and if anyone ever has a question, they can always just like email me or DM me, and I'm happy to connect with them.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being on and sharing your wisdom, and keep on doing the work that you are doing.
Thank you, Jessica. And I want to say thank you for this platform. As kids yoga teachers, there isn't a lot of visibility for us. So I think that, just having a podcast, I remember when I came across your podcast, um, I was just super excited about it because I was like, yes, finally, it's an outlet for kids yoga teachers, because I feel like we kind of just are working in the backgrounds, or we just kind of get our training and we kind of just disappear. Some of
Yes.
us get discouraged,
Yes.
some of us find the journey too lonely, some of us,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of divert and do something else. But thank you for giving us and yourself and the listeners this platform.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for saying that. It means a lot. Really
Thank
means a lot.
you.
Well, have a wonderful evening and
You
let's stay
too.
in touch.
Absolutely.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.